The cold bit at Dr. June Kim's face as he walked across the icy ground of Antarctica. His thick boots crunched in the snow. The wind howled around him. 6 other scientists followed behind him, all wrapped in heavy coats. "Are you sure this is the spot?" asked Dr. Yoon Park, walking up beside him. Her voice was muffled by her scarf. June checked the device in his gloved hand. "Yes. The readings match the patterns we found in Egypt and Peru." He pointed ahead to a flat area of ice. "It should be right there, under about 30 feet of ice." Yoon nodded and waved to the drilling team. "Let's set up here." For 3 years, June had been following a mystery. It started when he found strange geometric patterns in an ancient Korean temple. The same patterns appeared in ruins across the world, in places that never had contact with each other. How could people who never met create the same complex designs thousands of years ago? It made no sense. Then June found something even stranger. When mapped on a globe, all these sites formed a perfect pattern pointing to this spot in Antarctica. The drilling began. June watched as the huge machine bored into the ice. After 4 hours, a worker shouted, "We hit something! It's not rock or ice." June's heart beat faster as he rushed to the hole. They lowered lights down, and what he saw made him gasp. 30 feet below was a smooth metallic surface with the same geometric patterns he'd been studying. "It can't be," Yoon whispered beside him. "These ice layers are over 100,000 years old. No human civilization existed then." "Exactly," said June, his eyes wide with excitement. 2 weeks later, they had melted a large opening in the ice. A team of 20 scientists from 7 countries now stood in a massive chamber beneath the ice. The walls were made of a metal no one recognized. The geometric patterns covered everything, glowing faintly with a blue light. "This material isn't on our periodic table," said Dr. Han from the physics team. "It's not from Earth." June barely heard him. He was staring at the center of the room where a large console stood. It was shaped like a half circle with a flat top. Strange symbols covered its surface. "We need to report this to the UN," said Professor Wang, the Chinese archaeology expert. "This changes human history. This changes everything." Within days, the news spread worldwide. An ancient structure clearly built by non-humans had been found in Antarctica. World leaders sent military forces to secure the site. News helicopters circled overhead. The internet exploded with theories. 1 month later, the chamber had been turned into a research base. Plastic tunnels connected to surface buildings. Scientists from every major nation worked in shifts. June had barely slept in weeks. "Nothing works," said Hyun, one of the engineers, throwing his hands up. "We've tried electricity, sound waves, light, magnetism. Nothing turns it on." June stared at the console. Despite all their tests, it remained silent. They had scanned it, photographed. It even tried to take samples. The metal resisted every cutting tool. But no one could activate it or understand its purpose. Today, a team of scientists from Russia was testing new equipment on it. June watched from the side as they aimed devices at the console. "Maybe it's broken," said Yoon, standing next to him. "Maybe it hasn't worked in 100,000 years." "No," said June. "Look at the metal. Not a speck of rust. No damage. It's perfect. It still works. We just don't know how to use it." As the Russians packed up their failed equipment, June approached the console. Important people from many countries stood watching in the chamber. He had explained his theories to them many times. "The patterns suggest it responds to touch," June said, pointing at the surface without touching it. "But we've all tried that. Maybe there's a specific sequence." As he moved his hand over the console to point at different areas, his palm accidentally brushed the surface. The room filled with light. Blue energy flowed from where June's hand touched. The patterns on the walls brightened. The symbols on the console began to glow and change. Everyone gasped. June tried to pull his hand away but couldn't. The light held him there. "June!" Yoon shouted, rushing forward. "I'm okay," he said, amazed. "It doesn't hurt. It feels warm." The console was changing under his hand. The flat surface rose and fell, forming new shapes. Symbols swirled around his fingers as if reading them. Then, as suddenly as it started, the light released him and he stumbled back. The console now hummed with power. A soft blue glow filled the chamber. "What did you do?" asked General Day from the Korean military. "Nothing," said June, staring at his hand. "I just touched it." Professor Wang stepped forward and placed his hand on the console. Nothing happened. One by one, everyone in the room tried. Scientists, military personnel, engineers, over 50 people from 12 countries. Nothing happened for any of them. "Try again, Dr. Kim," said an American official. June slowly placed his hand back on the console. Immediately it lit up, responding to his touch. The room filled with whispers. "Why only him?" someone asked. Yoon stepped forward. "Let me try something." She took June's hand and together they touched the console. It glowed even brighter. "It works for me too, but only when I'm touching June," she said. More tests followed. Soon they discovered something amazing. The device responded only to humans, but not all humans the same way. About 1 in 10 people could activate it like June. Another 3 in 10 could use it if touching someone like June. The rest couldn't activate it at all. "This doesn't make sense," said Dr. Han later that evening as they reviewed the data. "If aliens built this, why would it respond to human touch, and only certain humans?" "Maybe that's the point," said June quietly. Everyone looked at him. "What do you mean?" asked General Day. "Whatever built they made it for us," said June. "They designed it to be used by humans. That's why the patterns were in our ancient temples. They were teaching us, preparing us." The room fell silent as everyone considered this, but why only certain humans? Asked Yoon. Before June could answer, the console in the center of the chamber began to change again. Parts of it shifted and moved. A section rose up from the middle, forming a small pillar. "I didn't touch it," said June, backing away. The top of the pillar opened like a flower. Inside was a small crystal-like object. It floated up and hovered in the air. Then it projected an image above the console. A star map appeared, filling the chamber with tiny points of light. One star pulsed brighter than the others. "Is that?" began Yoon. "Yes," said June, his voice barely a whisper. "That's our sun." As they watched, more lights appeared on the map. Lines connected certain stars, forming a pattern. The same pattern from the ancient temples. The same pattern that led them to Antarctica. "It's a map," said June. "Not just to this place, but to others. There are more of these out there." The image changed. Now it showed Earth. 7 points of light appeared on the planet's surface. One was right where they stood in Antarctica. 6 others were scattered across the globe. "There are 6 more devices," said Yoon, her eyes wide. The image changed again. This time it showed strange symbols flowing in sequence. "A message," said June. "They left us a message." As the scientists stared at the alien message, news of what happened spread across the world. Humanity had just learned they were not alone. Something had visited Earth long ago and left technology behind, and for some reason, only humans could use it. 6 months passed since the discovery in Antarctica. The ice around the alien chamber had been completely cleared. A large research base now stood above it, with buildings, labs, and living quarters for over 200 people. Security was tight. Soldiers guarded every entrance. Dr. June Kim sat at a desk in his small office, staring at pictures on his computer. They showed the strange symbols from the alien console. Despite months of work, no one had figured out what they meant. "Still working?" Dr. Yoon Park poked her head through the doorway. She held 2 cups of coffee. June smiled and took one. "Thanks. Yes, I feel like we're missing something obvious." Yoon sat down across from him. "The UN meeting is in 2 days. They want results." "I know," June sighed. "But what can I tell them? We know the device shows a map with 7 points on Earth. We know it responds to certain humans. That's all." Since the discovery, teams had been sent to the 6 other locations, shown on the map. They found nothing. Either the other devices were buried deeper or the map meant something else. Yoon placed her hand on June's. You need rest. You've been working 16 hours a day. Before June could answer, his phone rang. It was Dr. Han from the main chamber. June, you need to come now. The device is doing something new. June and Yoon ran through the corridors of the base. When they reached the main chamber, 20 people were already there, staring at the alien. Console. The console glowed brighter than ever before. The crystal that had shown them the star map now floated 3 feet above the device, spinning slowly. What happened? Asked June. Nothing, said Dr. Han. No one touched it. It just started, doing this on its own about 10 minutes ago. As they watched, the crystal spun faster. Light shot out from it in all directions, forming a sphere of energy. The sphere grew until it was about 7 feet tall. Then the light changed, taking shape. A figure appeared inside the sphere. It looked almost human, but wrong in small ways. It was tall and thin with long arms. Its skin was pale blue. Its face had 2 large eyes, a small nose, and no mouth. It wore what looked like a robe made of flowing metal. Everyone in the room froze. The alien figure looked around slowly, its eyes taking in the humans. Then it looked directly at June. When it spoke, no mouth moved, but everyone heard the words clearly in their minds. You have found our message. Good. The voice was calm and clear. Most shocking of all, it spoke in perfect Korean. I am a recording, a shadow of those you might call the Naluri. We existed on this world 100,000 of your years ago. Gasps filled the room. June stepped forward. You lived on Earth? He asked. No, the figure replied. We visited, we studied, we prepared. This world was young then. Your kind were just beginning, small groups hunting and gathering, but we saw potential in you. The alien figure waved a hand. The air around it filled with images of early humans using tools, making fire. The Naluri were old even then, millions of years of civilization across many star systems. But we faced a threat we could not overcome. Extinction approached us. We knew we would not survive. The figure paused, its large eyes blinking slowly. Before our end, we seeded many worlds with knowledge, worlds with species that showed potential. Earth was one such world. Your species was one such hope. Yoon moved to stand beside June. Why, us? What made humans special? The alien seemed to consider her. Your brains, your minds, they were different. Most species evolve intelligence in a straight line, logical, predictable. Humans evolved sideways. The figure made a gesture with its long fingers, and new images appeared. They showed brain scans, neural patterns, DNA sequences. Your minds make connections others cannot. You see patterns in chaos. You imagine what does not exist, then make it real. This is rare. This is valuable. This is why we chose you. June felt his heart racing. The devices respond only to humans because you designed them that way? Yes. More specifically, they respond to the neural patterns that make humans unique. Not all humans have the same strength of these patterns. Some can use our technology easily. Some cannot. The alien figure now showed images of the 7 points on Earth. We left 7 keys of knowledge on your world. This is the first key. It contains our history and purpose. The remaining 6 contain knowledge your species will need. Need for what? Asked General Day, who had entered the chamber during the conversation. The alien turned to him. To survive what destroyed us. A heavy silence fell over the room. You said you were a recording, said June carefully. Does that mean the Naluri are gone? Yes. The last of my kind died 50,000 years ago. We could not save ourselves. But perhaps we can save you. The figure raised both arms. The sphere of light expanded, filling the entire chamber. Suddenly everyone stood in space, stars all around them. They could see planets, solar systems, galaxies. Long ago, we detected something moving between the stars. We called it the void. It consumes worlds. It erases life. It cannot be reasoned with or fought in normal ways. The image showed a dark wave moving through space, swallowing stars. Where it passed, nothing remained. The void moves slowly but never stops. We calculated its path. In approximately 200 of your years, it will reach your solar system. Yoon gasped. 200 years? That's nothing. We know. The alien's mental voice sounded sad. This is why we left the keys. Each contains knowledge that will help you prepare. Together they offer a chance. What kind of chance? Asked June. What can we do that you couldn't? The alien looked at him directly. Your minds work differently. You might find a solution we could not see. And if not, the keys will show you how to leave, how to survive elsewhere. The image of space faded. They were back in the chamber. You must find the other keys. Time grows short. But we've looked at the other locations, said Dr. Han. We found nothing. The keys are hidden, protected. Each key responds to a specific type of mind. The first key responds to those who see patterns and make connections. The second key will respond to those who build and shape. The third key calls to those who calculate and predict, and so on. The alien figure began to fade. Wait, called June. How do we find them? How do we use them? The first key contains a guide. Study it, learn from it, find the right minds to unlock each key. The figure was almost gone now, just a faint outline in the sphere of light. One last warning. You are not alone in this search. Others watch, others who would take the keys for themselves. Others? What others? Asked General Day. But the alien was gone. The sphere of light collapsed back into the crystal, which slowly descended to the console. For a long moment no one spoke. Then everyone started talking at once. Quiet, shouted General Day. Dr. Kim, what just happened? June stared at the console, his mind racing. We just met a messenger from an extinct alien race. They left technology on Earth 100,000 years ago to help us survive a threat that killed them. And this threat is coming here? Asked Yoon. In 200 years, yes, said June. We need to find the other devices, the other keys. And these others it mentioned? Asked Dr. Han. Who could that be? June shook his head. I don't know, but we need to move quickly. As the scientists discussed what they had learned, the crystal on the console began to glow again. This time it projected what looked like a book made of light. Pages turned slowly in the air, filled with symbols and diagrams. The guide, whispered Yoon. It's showing us how to find the other keys. June stepped forward and touched the light book. To his surprise, his hand didn't pass through it. It felt solid, like touching glass. When he moved his fingers, the pages turned. I can read this, he said, surprised. Or, not read exactly, but I understand it somehow. The room fell silent as June studied the light book. After several minutes, he looked up. The second key is in the Amazon rainforest, and we need someone specific to find it. He looked at General Day. We need Hyun Cho, the engineer. Why him? Because, said June, the second key will only respond to a builder, someone who makes things. According to this, Hyun Cho has the right kind of mind. The race to find the remaining keys had begun. The helicopter flew low over the endless green of the Amazon rainforest. Inside, Hyun Cho gripped his seat tightly. He had never left Korea before this trip. Now he was flying over one of the wildest places on Earth. Are you okay? Shouted June, over the noise of the rotors. Hyun nodded stiffly. He was a small man with thick glasses and messy hair. At 32, he was one of Korea's best engineers, known for building machines no one else could design. But he hated flying. We're almost there, called Yoon from the front seat. Below them, the trees parted to reveal a small clearing. A group of tents had been set up around what looked like an ancient stone structure. The helicopter landed, kicking up dust and leaves. As they climbed out, a woman in a dirty field uniform approached them. Dr. Kim, I'm Dr. Santos. Welcome to Site 2. June shook her hand. This is Dr. Park and Engineer Cho. What have you found? Dr. Santos led them toward the stone structure. It's definitely not natural, and definitely not made by any known human civilization. The patterns match those from Antarctica. The structure looked like a small pyramid, about 20 feet tall. Most of it was covered in vines and dirt, but workers had cleared one side, revealing the familiar geometric patterns. "We've been trying for a week," said Dr. Santos. No response. Hyun walked slowly around the pyramid. His eyes scanned every inch of the surface. Then he reached out and gently touched a pattern near the base. Nothing happened. "Maybe we were wrong," said Hyun. "Maybe Hyun isn't—" "No," interrupted Hyun. He rarely spoke, so when he did, people listened. "This isn't a touch panel. Look at the patterns. See how they flow? It's a circuit." He pulled a small toolkit from his backpack and took out what looked like a metal pen. "What are you doing?" asked Dr. Santos. "Completing the circuit," said Hyun. He placed the metal pen at one end of a pattern and dragged it along the grooves. Where the pen touched, the stone began to glow faintly. When he reached the end of the pattern, a loud rumbling sound came from inside the pyramid. The ground shook. Everyone stepped back as a doorway opened in the side of the structure. Hyun looked back at the others, his face showing a small, rare smile. "Shall we?" Inside the pyramid was a chamber similar to the one in Antarctica. Another console stood in the center, but this one was shaped differently. Instead of a flat surface, it had what looked like building blocks or puzzle pieces. As soon as Hyun entered, the blocks began to glow. They rose into the air and hovered around him. "It's scanning you," said June. "Just like the first key scanned me." After a moment, the blocks returned to the console and rearranged themselves. They formed what looked like a model of a machine. Hyun studied it carefully. "It's a blueprint," he said softly, "for a propulsion system. Nothing like we've ever built before." A crystal rose from the center of the model, just like in Antarctica. It projected images all around them. Spacecraft traveling between stars, moving at speeds that should be impossible. "The second key," whispered Hyun. "Knowledge of how to build ships that can cross space." Hyun was already taking pictures, making notes. His eyes were wide with excitement. "I can build this. Not all at once, but in stages. We'll need new materials, but the principles are beautiful." As Hyun studied the designs, another image appeared. A map showing the location of the third key. "It's underwater," said June, looking closely. "In the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of the ocean." A face appeared next to the map. A young girl with bright eyes. "Who is that?" asked Dr. Santos. June checked his phone, connecting to the research team database. "Ji Lee. She's 15 years old, living in Seoul. A math prodigy. The third key needs a calculator," said Hyun, still focused on the blueprints. "Someone who understands numbers better than people." While Hyun stayed in Brazil to study the second key, June and Yoon returned to Korea to find Ji Lee. She was exactly as her picture showed, small, bright-eyed, always moving. She played with a Rubik's Cube as they talked to her parents. "You want to take our daughter to the bottom of the ocean?" asked Ji's mother, frowning. "It's important," said June. "We can't explain everything, but the future of humanity may depend on it." Ji looked up from her puzzle. "You found the alien's message, didn't you? It's been all over the news. You need me to solve the next part." June and Yoon exchanged surprised looks. Ji sighed. "It's obvious. The first site needed a pattern seeker. The second needed a builder. The third needs a calculator. That's me." 2 weeks later, a small submarine descended into the darkness of the Mariana Trench. Inside were June, Yoon, Ji, and 2 submarine pilots. "How much farther?" asked Ji, who seemed completely calm despite being almost 7 miles below the ocean surface. "We're almost at the coordinates," said one of the pilots. "But I don't see anything yet." Ji looked out the window at the black water. "There." She pointed to what looked like a smooth wall of rock. "That's not natural." The submarine moved closer. The lights revealed a structure similar to the others, but adapted to the crushing pressures of the deep ocean. It was built into the side of an underwater cliff. "How do we get inside?" asked Yoonji, studied the patterns visible on the structure's surface. Those aren't just patterns, they're equations. She grabbed a notebook and began writing rapidly, solving complex mathematical formulas in seconds. These numbers, she muttered. They're a sequence. A key. She looked up at the pilots. Can the submarine send sound waves? Yes, we have sonar. I need you to send this exact frequency pattern. She handed them a page of numbers. The pilots programmed the sequence into the sonar system and activated it. The sound waves were too low for human ears, but they felt the vibration. The structure responded immediately. A section of the wall slid, open, revealing a chamber inside. The submarine was just small enough to enter. Once inside, the outer door closed behind them. Water drained away, leaving the submarine in a dry chamber filled with air. We can go out, said a pilot, checking the readings. The air is breathable. Inside the chamber was another console, this one covered in mathematical symbols. As soon as G approached it, the symbols began to move and change. It's beautiful, she whispered, touching the symbols. It's a new kind of math, a new way to understand energy. The third key activated fully, showing them incredible images of energy, fields, power systems beyond anything humans had built. This is how to generate enough power for the ships, said G, her eyes wide. The second key showed how to build them. This shows how to power them. As they studied the third key, June received an urgent message on his satellite phone. We have a problem, he said after reading it. Someone attacked the Brazil site. They tried to steal the second key. Who? Asked Yoon. We don't know, but they weren't human. Back at the Antarctic base, world leaders gathered to discuss the growing crisis. The Naluri's warning about others watching seemed to be true. We have 3 keys, said General Day in the emergency meeting. 4 more to find. And now we know we're not alone in looking for them. Satellite images showed the attack in Brazil. The figures moved too fast to be clearly seen, but they were definitely not human. They had escaped without the key but had injured several guards. The 4th key is in the Gobi Desert, said June, pointing to a map. We need to move quickly before they find it. As the meeting continued, alarms suddenly blared throughout the base. Security breach, shouted someone over the intercom. Unknown intruders in Sector 7. The lights went out. When emergency power came on seconds later, strange figures were standing in the doorway of the meeting room. They looked almost human, but with gray skin and eyes that reflected light like a cat's. You have something that belongs to us, said one of the figures in a voice that sounded like grinding metal. The keys do not belong to you, replied another figure. They were left for those who come after. General Day reached for his gun, but one of the figures moved with impossible speed, knocking him across the room. Stop, shouted June, stepping forward. The keys only work for humans. You can't use them. The lead figure tilted its head. Then you will use them for us. Before anyone could react, the figures grabbed June and Yoon and began dragging them toward the door. Guards rushed in, firing their weapons, but the bullets seemed to slow down before hitting the intruders. They have some kind of shield technology, yelled a guard. As June struggled against his captor, he managed to break free for a moment. He ran to the first key console and slammed his hand down on it. The room filled with light. The intruders screamed, covering their eyes. The light seemed to burn them, forcing them to retreat. When the light faded, the intruders were gone. June helped Yoon to her feet. What just happened? Asked General Day, getting up slowly. June looked at the first key, which was still glowing, faintly. I think the Naluri built in protections. The keys don't just respond to humans, they protect humans. But who were those things? Asked Yoon. I don't know, said June. But we need to find the remaining keys before they come back. The Yawite hunt had become a race, and humanity was not running alone. The Gobi Desert stretched out in all directions, empty and vast. A small convoy of jeeps kicked up dust as they raced across the flat ground. In the lead vehicle, June checked the map on his tablet. Stop here, he called to the driver. The convoy halted. Soldiers jumped out and formed a protective circle. After the attack at the Antarctic base, security had been increased. No one was taking chances now. Yoon climbed out and stood beside June. Are you sure this is the spot? There's nothing here. June nodded. The coordinates from the third key lead to this exact location. They had learned that each key revealed the location of the next one. The first key in Antarctica had shown them the second in Brazil. The second had revealed the third in the ocean, and now the third had pointed them here to the middle of nowhere. Maybe it's underground, suggested one of the soldiers. No, said a quiet voice. It's above us. Everyone turned to look at Professor Min Yu. The old man was in his 70s with white hair and a kind face. He had been a philosopher and historian before joining the Key Project. According to the third key, he was the person they needed to find the fourth key. Above us? Repeated June, looking up at the empty sky. Min pointed upward. Not in the sky, in orbit. Yoon gasped. The fourth key is in space? Yes, said Min. The Naluri placed it there to test us, to see if we could reach beyond our world. June's phone rang. It was Hyun from the Brazilian site. June, we did it, said Hyun, his voice excited. We built a prototype of the propulsion system. It works. We can reach orbit in hours, not days. June smiled. Perfect timing. We need to go to space. 3 days later, June, Yoon, and Professor Min sat strapped into seats aboard the strangest spacecraft ever built by humans. It looked like a normal rocket on the outside, but inside was Hyun's prototype engine, built using the Naluri designs. All systems ready, came Hyun's voice over the radio. He had stayed behind to monitor the launch. Preparing for ignition. June closed his eyes as the countdown began. The rocket shook, then shot upward with incredible speed. What should have taken minutes took seconds. The pressure pushed them back into their seats, but it wasn't as bad as they had expected. Orbit achieved, said the pilot after just 20 minutes. We're approaching the coordinates now. Through the window they could see Earth below, beautiful and blue. Ahead of them floated what looked like a small metal sphere about the size of a car. The fourth key, whispered Yoon. The spacecraft matched speed with the sphere and extended a docking tunnel. Soon they were floating through the tunnel into the Naluri device. Inside was a small chamber with familiar geometric patterns on the walls. In the center floated another console, this one shaped like a sphere with many small indentations. Professor Min floated toward it. As soon as he approached, the sphere began to glow. It recognizes you, said June. Min placed his hands on the sphere. I can feel thoughts, ideas. This key contains philosophy, history, understanding. The sphere projected images around them, showing the history of the Naluri, their rise and fall. It showed their journey across the stars, their discoveries, their art and culture. They were so much like us, said Min, his eyes wide with wonder. They wondered about the meaning of life, they created beauty, they loved their children. Then the images changed, showing the approach of the void. The Naluri detected it first as a strange darkness between stars. Then as worlds went silent. Then as entire systems vanished. They sent ships to investigate, said Min, watching the story unfold. None returned. The images showed Naluri scientists working desperately to understand the void. They built weapons, shields, entire fleets of warships. Nothing worked. The void consumed everything it touched. Then they discovered something, continued Min. The void wasn't a thing. It was a place, a dimension touching ours. The images showed new Naluri experiments. They were trying to reach other dimensions, other planes of existence. They found a way to escape, said Min. Not to run to other stars, but to ascend to a higher dimension. June floated closer. They didn't die out. They escaped to another reality. Yes, said Min. But not all could go. The process required a specific kind of mind, a specific way of thinking. The images showed Naluri being tested. Some could perceive. The higher dimensions could reach toward them. Others could not. Only about half their population could ascend, said Min sadly. The rest stayed behind to buy time, to fight a losing battle while the others escaped. And now the void is coming here, said Yoon. Can we fight it? Min shook his head. No, the Naluri were far more advanced than us, and they couldn't fight it. But they left us the way to escape it. The fourth key showed them a final image, AC by your human brain, glowing with energy patterns unlike any alien brain. This is why the keys respond only to humans, said Min. Our minds can do what the Naluri minds could only partly do. We can perceive multiple realities at once. We can imagine what doesn't exist and make it real. The creativity that makes us human, whispered June. That's what they saw in us 100,000 years ago. The key showed one more image, a mountain in Korea. Mount Baekdu. The fifth key, said Yoon. It's in our homeland. Back on Earth, news of the discovery spread quickly. Humanity now understood what they faced. Not an enemy to fight, but a cosmic event to escape. The only way to survive was to ascend to a higher dimension, just as the Naluri had done. The journey to Mount Baekdu was quick. With new understanding, from the fourth key they knew exactly where to look. Inside a cave near the summit they found the fifth key. This time it was Yoon who activated it. To everyone's surprise, she could use the key directly without June's help. The keys are adapting to us, explained Professor Min. They're learning about humans, just as we're learning about them. The fifth key revealed something shocking. The void wasn't approaching Earth. It was already here, dormant within the collective unconscious of humanity. What does that mean? Asked General Day, who had joined them at Mount Baekdu. It means, said Yoon, her hands still on the fifth key, that the void isn't just a threat from outside. It's inside us too. Our fear, our hate, our capacity for destruction. The Naluri saw this in us alongside our creativity. The fifth key showed them images of human history. Wars, atrocities, destruction. But also beauty, love, and creation. We contain both, said Yoon. The power to create and the power to destroy. The key then revealed the location of the sixth key, deep under the Pacific Ocean, in a trench even deeper than the Mariana. And there was more. The fifth key showed them images of the strange gray beings who had attacked them. They're called the Vex, said Yoon, reading the information. They're from a nearby star system. They detected the Naluri technology activating and came to investigate. Why do they want the keys? Asked June. They don't want to ascend, said. They want to control the void, to use it as a weapon. They think the keys will give them that power. But that's impossible, said Professor Min. The void can't be controlled. They don't understand that, replied Yoon. They think power is always about control, never about transformation. As they prepared to seek the sixth key, alarms sounded throughout the cave. Outside ships appeared in the sky. Not human ships, Vex ships. They found us, said General Day. We need to move now. They rushed toward the exit, but stopped when they saw what waited outside. Dozens of Vex soldiers surrounded the cave, their weapons pointed inward. We can't fight our way out, said June. There are too many. Yoon touched the fifth key again. Maybe we don't have to fight. The key glowed brighter. Energy flowed from it into Yoon, then from Yoon to June and the others. For a moment they felt something strange, as if they were in two places at once. The Vex soldiers entered the cave, their weapons ready. But they walked right past the humans, not seeing them. What's happening? Whispered June. We're partially phased into another dimension, said Yoon. The fifth key showed me how. It's temporary, but it will let us escape. They slipped past the confused Vex soldiers and made their way down the mountain to the waiting vehicles. The sixth key, said Yoon as they drove away. We need to find it quickly. It contains knowledge of how to permanently phase into higher dimensions. June looked back at Mount Baekdu, now surrounded by alien ships. And the seventh key? Yoon's face was serious. The seventh key is in Antarctica, where we started. It will bring all the knowledge together and open the way for humanity to ascend. Just like the Naluri did, said Professor Min. Yes, said Yoon. But there's a difference. The Naluri could only save half their population. With all 7 keys working together, we might be able to save everyone. The race to find the final keys had become more urgent than ever. The Vex were fully engaged in the hunt now. And somewhere in the darkness between dimensions, the void was stirring, awakened by the activation of the keys. Humanity's time was running out. Each placed their hands on the first key at the same time. Energy flowed between them, connecting their minds. "I can feel the other keys," said Hyun, "all around the world." "They're linking together," said Ji, "forming a global network." Outside, the Vex had broken through the outer defenses. They were inside the base, fighting their way toward the chamber. "Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now," said General Day, standing guard at the door. Professor Min looked up from the tall key. "It's ready, but there's a problem. The process needs time to spread worldwide. We need to hold the Vex off." "For how long?" asked General Day. "At least 10 minutes?" General Day nodded grimly. "We'll give you that time." As he and his soldiers prepared for what might be their last stand, June had an idea. "The keys protect humans," he said. "Remember how the first key repelled the Vex before? If we can amplify that—" Yoon understood immediately. She adjusted her connection to the key network. "There. I've redirected part of the energy to form a shield around the base." The Vex reached the outer door of the chamber. They fired their weapons, but the energy from the keys formed a barrier they couldn't break. "It's working," shouted one of the soldiers. Inside the chamber, the key activators focused on their task. Through their connection, they could see the network spreading. Each key sent out a pulse of energy that traveled across the earth. Where the pulses met, new connections formed. "It's reaching everyone," said Ji. "Every human mind on the planet." On screens around the world, people watched as strange lights appeared in the sky. Colors no one had seen before filled the air. Many were afraid, but others felt something new, a sense of connection, of being part of something larger. In the chamber, the key activators could feel it happening. Human consciousness was beginning to shift, to expand. People were starting to perceive the higher dimensions the Naluri had discovered. "It's not enough," said Professor Min suddenly. "The void is fighting back. It's too strong." They could feel it through the network. The void, sensing what was happening, was pushing back. Dark tendrils reached into human minds, feeding fear, causing people to resist the change. "We need something more," said June. "Something the Naluri didn't have." Yoon squeezed his hand. "They didn't have our creativity, our imagination." Through the key network, they sent a new message. Not just knowledge or energy, but something uniquely human. Hope, wonder, the ability to imagine a better future. Around the world, people began to create. They sang, painted, wrote, built, loved, all the things that made humans different from other species. Each creative act strengthened the network, pushed back the void. In the chamber, the air shimmered like it had in the 6th key's portal. Reality itself began to change around them. "It's happening," said Yoon. "The ascension." The Vex outside, the chamber screamed in frustration as their forms began to blur. To beings locked in a single dimension, the human ascension looked like destruction. But it wasn't. It was transformation. The change swept across the earth like a wave of light. Human consciousness expanded, allowing people to perceive and exist in multiple dimensions at once. Their physical forms remained, but their minds grew beyond what any species had achieved before. And the void, which fed on fear and division, could no longer touch them. It needed beings trapped in a single reality to feed on. Humans were no longer such beings. 1 year later, June and Yoon stood on a hill overlooking Seoul. The city looked the same yet different. Colors were richer. The air seemed alive with possibilities. "Do you think the Naluri knew this would happen?" asked Yoon. "I think they hoped," said June. "They saw something in us they didn't fully have themselves." Humanity had changed but not ended. People still lived, loved, worked, and created. but now they did so with awareness of the higher dimensions around them. They could see the connections between all things, the patterns in what once seemed like chaos. The Vex had retreated, unable to comprehend what humans had become. The void had gone dormant again, unable to feed on beings who existed partially, outside its reach. As June and Yoon watched the sunset, they saw what others now could see as well, faint shapes moving in the air around them. The echoes of the Naluri, watching from their own ascended state. "They're proud of us," said Yoon, smiling. "Yes," agreed June. "We didn't just survive. We showed them a new way forward." Around them, the world continued to change and grow. Humans were using their new perception to heal the planet, to build technologies the Naluri never imagined, to reach toward the stars with new understanding. The ancient aliens had built the keys, but only humans could use them to create something entirely new. The deep-sea submarine moved slowly through the dark waters of the Pacific. It was a new design, built using knowledge from the keys. Inside, June, Yoon, and a team of scientists watched as the depth meter showed numbers no human vessel had ever reached before. 30,000 meters, said the pilot. "We should be approaching the trench soon." Outside the window was only blackness. Their lights barely cut through the crushing depths. The pressure here would have crushed a normal submarine like an empty can. "There," said Yoon, pointing. "I can feel it." Ahead, their lights revealed a massive crack in the ocean floor, and nestled within it was a structure similar to the others but larger. "The sixth key," said June. As they approached, something moved in the darkness. The pilot turned the lights, revealing the shape of another submarine. It wasn't human-made. "Vex," whispered Yoon. They found it too. The alien vessel turned toward them. A beam of energy shot out, hitting the water near them. The ocean boiled where it struck. "Evasive action," shouted June. Their submarine dove toward the trench. The Vex followed, firing again. This time, the beam grazed their hull. Warning lights flashed. "Hull damage," reported the pilot. "But the new materials are holding." They reached the alien structure and saw an opening just large enough for their submarine. The pilot steered inside, and the opening closed behind them. The Vex ship was locked outside. Inside was another chamber, larger than any they had seen before. When the water drained, they exited the submarine. The sixth key stood in the center of the chamber. Unlike the others, it wasn't a console but a large archway made of the strange alien metal. "Who activates this one?" asked June, looking around. Yoon smiled. "All of us. The sixth key tests our ability to work together." The team approached the archway. As they did, it began to glow. Images appeared around them, showing humans throughout history working together to overcome challenges. "The Naluri feared the void because they faced it alone," said Yoon, touching the archway. "But humans have always been stronger together." The key responded to her touch. The space inside the archway shimmered and changed. Suddenly, they could see another place through it, like looking through a window. "It's a portal," gasped June. Through the archway, they saw what looked like Earth but different. The colors were stranger. The air seemed to shimmer with energy. "A higher dimension," said Yoon. "Just like the one the Naluri escaped to." More images appeared around them. They showed the void awakening, stirring within the collective consciousness of humanity. Dark tendrils were spreading across the world, feeding on fear, anger, and division. "We're running out of time," said June. "The void is waking up because of us, because we activated the keys." The sixth key showed them one more thing: the complete process of ascension, not just for a few humans, but for all. "The seventh key is the final piece," said Yoon. "It will connect all the others and open the way for everyone." A rumbling sound came from outside the chamber. The Vex were trying to break in. "We need to get to Antarctica," said June. "Now." At the Antarctic base, chaos reigned. News of the void had leaked to the public. Strange events were happening worldwide. Dark shadows appeared in places they shouldn't. People reported seeing things that couldn't exist. Reality itself seemed to be breaking down. World leaders argued about what to do. Some wanted to use the keys to build weapons. Others wanted to hide them away. Fear was spreading, making the void stronger. When June and Yoon arrived with knowledge, from the sixth key they called an emergency meeting. "The void feeds on our fear and division," explained Yoon to the room full of leaders. "The more we fight each other, the stronger it grows." "So what do we do?" asked General Day. "We ascend," said June. "All of us, together. The seventh key will show us how." "Ascend? Leave Earth behind?" asked one leader. "That's running away." "No," said Professor Min, who had been studying the fourth key. "It's evolving, moving to the next stage. We don't leave Earth, we transform how we exist on it." Not everyone agreed. Even as they debated, reports came in of Vex ships entering Earth's atmosphere. They were coming for the keys. "We're out of time," said June. "We need to activate the seventh key now." They moved to the chamber where it all began. The first key still stood there waiting. Its patterns had changed, evolved as they learned from each key. The seventh key isn't a separate device, realized Yoon, looking at the first key. It's all the keys together. They form a network. June touched the first key. It responded immediately, glowing brighter than ever before. "We need the others who activated keys," he said. "Hyunji, Professor Min, all of them." As soldiers fought to keep the Vex away from the base, the key activators gathered in the chamber. Hyun came from Brazil. Ji arrived from her research station. Professor Min stood with them,